and welcome to Finextra. I'm Hannah Wallace, and with me now is Rebecca Martin, Director of Content for Money20 Asia. And to start off, we're going to be talking about SuperApps. Hi Rebecca, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thanks, Hannah.
So to start off with then, can you tell me what are SuperApps and what are the economics behind the platforms building them in China?
Sure. So the rise we're seeing at the moment of Chinese tech giants like Ant Financial and Tencent is developing this new type of business model, which we're referring to as the platform Ecology model or the super app model. And what we're seeing is that these tech giants with their apps, Alipay and WeChat, are developing financial services products, wider products and services in these platforms that they're offering to consumers. So they now have in these apps search functionality, commerce, navigation, conversation that all sits within this one super app. And this is allowing them to develop, I guess, contextualized and seamless experiences for their customers that otherwise wouldn't be possible. And we're seeing this trend as kind of the e-commerce giants, the social messaging giants, the on-demand giants moving into financial services. So if we take Ant Financial, for example, they're now valued at 150 billion, which makes them in the top 10 financial services companies in the world, so bigger than Goldman Sachs. They raised 35% of fintech funding globally last year, and they now have over 600 million users for Alipay. And then Tencent, which has over 1 billion users, at the end of last year introduced its own platform so that it sits within your app itself, similar to an iOS platform. So you can see these technology giants that are achieving hyperscale through this platform model. And at Money20, what we're going to try and do is shine a light on what this model looks like, what the economics are behind it, and how it's enabling these giants to achieve hyperscale, but also how it's enabling the kind of third parties that are creating products within these ecosystems. So these third parties start to look at each other as partners within this ecosystem rather than competitors. And they're able to grow much faster than they would do by themselves because they have access to the customer base of these platforms to start with.
That's really interesting. Do you think we're likely to see this model being developed in Europe?
It's a good question. So I think we're already seeing this model expand outside of China. So there's a big chance that we could see it coming into Europe and maybe even the US as well. So if we look at the internationalization strategies of those players that I mentioned, so of Ant Financial and Tencent, what they're doing as they come outside of China is they're looking at acquiring or partnering with the leading mobile wallets in countries across Asia to get their customer base ready and then build those platforms underneath these mobile wallets. So they start supplying their technology in the back end behind these mobile wallets. So for Ant Financial, for example, they have acquired or partnered with Paytm in India, with bKash in Bangladesh, and with Mint in the Philippines, where they're looking at this strategy. But it's not just the Chinese tech giants that are looking at this kind of super app model outside of China. There's also homegrown talent across Southeast Asia. So one example is Grab, which is the Southeast Asian version of Uber. It actually acquired Uber's Southeast Asian business last year. So it started as an on-demand platform, and it's now offering lending, insurance, and other services through its one app. So it's also looking at this super app model. Even Airwallex is another company that's Australian-based that started as a cross-border payments company, but is now developing a platform as a service model where it's enabling any of its partners to have access to all of its suppliers and partners within their own ecosystem. So it's this idea that you can almost, as any company, you can become this platform or you can kind of create your own ecosystem around yourself. And if you think, I guess just to take a step back from it on a personal level, already based in London, I use an app, just one app, to share photos, to text my friends, to call them, to share news. I can even do conference calls on that platform now, and that's WhatsApp. So already I'm starting to see a number of those services integrated into one platform. WhatsApp has even started in India offering payment services. So that already is developing that kind of frictionless integrated payments layer underneath its social messaging app. So I think we're going to start to see this happen in a much bigger way across the world. And the question really is, who is going to lead the way? Is it going to be the tech giants that we're used to here, like WhatsApp or Facebook, or is it going to be led from the East? And how do regulators attempt to regulate a market with these super apps that are controlling everything. And most importantly to Money 2020 is, how do financial services companies, so incumbent banks, how do they look at this model that's coming their way? Because they're losing the touch point with the customer. The apps being used by people daily, every hour even, you could say you're on your app on your phone. So the touch point with the customer is being held by the platform and not by the bank. And so the bank's losing the data as well. That's sitting with the platform instead of with the financial company. So the question is, should financial services companies look to partner with these tech giants? So should they look to approach them and build their own services within their ecosystems? Or should they try and compete with them? Should they try and get their customers back? And those are the types of panels and conversations that we're going to be hosting at Money 2020 in Asia this year.
Fantastic. All right, and you touched on this already, but what are the opportunities of these platforms now, but also in the future?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I think beyond the model that I've outlined so far, there's a new trend that we're starting to see that I think has a massive impact on traditional financial services, but across the whole ecosystem that we hope to represent. And that's the move of these tech giants in China really into offering this platform ecology model, not just in a B2C environment, so not just through your super app to consumers, but also in a B2B environment. So we're starting to see that technology giants are building a suite of technology services from AI, machine learning, data analytics, that they're providing to banks in the back end. So they're looking at building, kind of replacing legacy infrastructure for banks with a technology platform, with a technology stack that they control. So probably the best example of this is Ping An's OneConnect. They've actually just last year opened their office in Singapore, and we've got the overseas CEO for Ping An OneConnect coming to talk to us about how they're building that product for financial services. A bit earlier in the journey is Ant Financial that I mentioned before. They've partnered already with Everbright Bank in China to replace their core banking infrastructure. And then we've got a strategic partnership between Tencent and Sunline Technology, which is a technology provider in China that's already underpinning Tencent's challenger bank, WeBank. So I think the implications for this is huge, right? If you've got your data powered centrally using new technology, you can deliver much more seamless and interesting experiences to your customers. You can combine that data in a non-siloed way and address compliance concerns much more cheaply, efficiency concerns. So we're going to be looking at the case studies of where this is working already and what this means for the rest of financial services.
Certainly some really exciting developments there. Rebecca, thank you so much for this. I can't wait to join you in Singapore.
Brilliant. See you there, Hannah.